Hi, you're listening to Abbacadabra Radio. This podcast is for my conscious creator friends, my manifesting besties. This is part stream of consciousness, part talking with people who love to talk about conscious creation, manifestation, spiritual things, anything in between. And it is my hope that through this podcast, I expand my own awareness and understanding of myself, and you guys do too. I am happy to have you guys here along for the ride. Hello, my conscious creator friends. Here we are back with yet another episode of Abbacadabra Radio. I'm Abby, your host, and I am so happy you're here. Before we get into the episode, of course, I have to let you guys know we have the Blueprint 30-Day Manifestation Method. We have Reality Creation Consulting, which is one-on-one coaching. We have the Opening Up to Money Masterclass, a 3-day masterclass. We have 3 hypnosises, which is the Aligning with Love hypnosis, the Opening Up to Money hypnosis, and the identity shifting hypnosis, as well as the conscious creation workbook and the timeline shifting audio, all available on the website. So if you're interested in any of those things, go check that out now, or check that out later, or check that out whenever you want to. Let's get into the episode. So in true Abby form, I am recording this on a whim because I feel like I really need to talk about what I'm going to talk about today. And what I'm going to talk about is the cycle that I will find myself in terms of like reawakening to conscious creation, because this happens cyclically for me. And it's important, I think, to kind of know when you're in this world, when you're in conscious creation, there's an aspect of yourself that kind of falls asleep to your own power. So if you hear me say fall asleep, that's what I mean. I mean, fall asleep to like the knowledge that you have of creating reality. So that's important to know. If you are familiar with Jessa Reed at all, she also uses that terminology in that same way. So that is where I got that. Thank you, Jessa. Yeah. So if you've been following this podcast, then you know it started because I had gone to sleep, because I had kind of denounced spirituality for a significant amount of time. My mother had passed away. I gave up on the idea of God, the universe, of manifestation. I gave up on everything for a long time. I couldn't even sit with myself to meditate because I was going through grief. I was going through loss. I was going through a massive transformation. It wasn't until I felt ridiculously powerless and was going through some other really big, seemingly terrible scenarios that I felt powerless to, that I woke back up to all of this stuff. What had happened was I denounced everything and ignored everything, couldn't meditate, couldn't be alone with myself, so much so that reality really just kind of caved in on me, and circumstances kind of just caved in on me, and I let things take over, and I let reality kind of dictate how I was going to show up, which is absolutely fine. But when you let reality dictate how you're going to show up, being able to change anything in your reality is really, 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 really hard. So when I woke back up to spirituality, when I woke back up to conscious creation, everything really changed for me because I started seeing it in a different way. I really owned my own power. I really owned the fact that these things that are happening, I play a part in every single thing. And these judgments that I have, these are the only judgments I can really truly react to. If someone outside of myself says you're ugly and I hate you, that's only going to land if there's a part of me that thinks that's true and that that's actually a part of me. But that self-concept work, that takes time. And there was a time in my life where if someone did do that, I would crumble. I would believe it. I would go into that. Now I would just be like, you are having a terrible day. What has happened? Are you okay? Do you need to talk? Is everything okay? I just don't accept that. Granted, there are times where I do need to work on my self-concept a little bit, but I'm going to get into that because I went to sleep. I woke back up, and then I had honestly, like a few years of feeling like, yeah, I'm in it. And then recently I went to sleep again. I was still aware of conscious creation. I was still aware of manifestation, but I was ignoring the fact that the things I was paying attention to, the things I was focusing on, those were creating my reality. I knew it, but I was asleep to it, if that makes sense. Like I understood it, but I just wasn't really paying attention to how I was navigating my reality. So I was letting a lot of circumstances dictate how I would feel. Letting a lot of circumstances dictate how I would navigate different scenarios, different people, different anything showing up. And when you do that, again, change is very hard to make happen when you are just reacting blindly to the things that you have been attracting into your reality And then you kind of get stuck in a loop of, I've been reacting this way, so it's going to continue showing up this way. And then as soon as it shows up that way, I'm going to react the same way I had been reacting because that's my baseline. That's my automatic response. So you need to catch yourself when you fall back asleep. You need to catch yourself when you're in that state of powerlessness in order to get out of it. And for me, what will happen is I feel like I can't take in enough information about things to expand, so I don't expand and I stay in, and then I like live in my creation for a little bit, and then as soon as it starts to feel powerless and uncomfortable, that's when I get back into, okay, now it's time to start listening to the things that I talk about, to start really owning my reality. There are times where I am not owning my reality. There will be times where you feel like you do not own your reality and you do not command your reality, and that's okay. That's part of being human. That's part of waking up. That's part of all of this, and all of your experiences are valid. I do want to touch upon, last night I did a meditation, and it was one of the best meditations I've ever done. I'm going to see if I can add like a photo of what it looked like here, because I want to give the person credit. But one of the things that they kept saying in this meditation, you are a fully validated concept. And that landed with me in such a profound way, in such a needed time, because it was really yesterday that I was feeling like, okay, I'm starting to get back into things. I'm starting to feel like I can actually create my own reality again. I'm waking back up to everything. I want to get back into this stuff. And as soon as I get back into this stuff and wake up to my own divine way, divine being, divine intelligence, I don't know, divine worthiness, that's as soon as that happens, content gets made, different things start falling into place, money comes in, relationships change in the best ways, unexpected opportunities fly in, I get new ideas, I make new connections. And I think really that has to do with just like the energy that I'm ushering into my reality, because when I get in those places of feeling really stuck and stagnant and bad, it hits a point where I say, I can't take this anymore. And I need to make the change, and that's when I go, okay, it's internal. You know that the change is internal. You know if you want things to happen, you need to make them happen. So if you're unhappy and if you're not in the best place, what changes can I make right now? Is it listening to a podcast that makes me feel inspired? Is it taking a bath and meditating and feeling like a fully validated concept? Is it eating a really nice lunch with a friend? What is it? And then I follow whatever that nudge is. Is it recording a podcast? Is it offering Reiki on my Instagram stories and then sending Reiki to people for the day when they ask for it? It could be any of those things. But those are like the ideas that come into my mind and the things that start falling into place as soon as I make the decision. I'm making a change. I'm ushering my way in. Like I said in the last episode, we will have moments where as we are bringing in a new way of being, which I really do think that I have been doing, I've been working so hard on my self-concept. I've been working so hard at how I'm looking at people, looking at relationships, trying to zoom out. I've been looking at so many different things in so many different ways and trying to have a deeper understanding and a different understanding and a different perspective and allowing things to be as they are. And when those things happen, like I said last week, things fall away, things fall apart, things feel chaotic. And I was in a few weeks of things feeling chaotic, feeling bad. It felt like everything was ending and I felt like shit. It didn't feel good. So that's my cycle. I will kind of like go away from it for a little bit, feel my feelings, be in my reality, and then I take data from that. So even when I'm in those, like this more recent time when I was in that moment, that like month and a half, 2 months of feeling powerless, of feeling like not really with it, of feeling like I don't have 2 feet on the ground in my reality, I was okay with it. I wasn't trying to judge myself on it, but it hit a point where I was like, I can't do this anymore because I know I'm going to start really, I don't want my trajectory to be affected because I'm continuing to stay here. It's okay to feel your feelings, but you don't want to stick inside of those less than ones, those lack-based ones, those unworthy ones for too long. I take it as data. I take it as, okay, this is happening. Okay, I can see why that was created. I can see how those things came down the pipeline. I can see my part in it because I have a part in it. And now I can change it. And changing it, how do you change it? You got to work on yourself. You got to work on your self-concept. You got to go inside because your inside is reflected from your outside. So I'm getting aspects of my inside reflected back to me. And I am telling you, last night I started rereading the book by Florence Scoval Shinn called The Game of Life and How to Play It. And I made up a song with one of the affirmations that she gave, and I've been saying it nonstop in my mind for the past, like, not even 24 hours. And the affirmation is, I do perfect work in a perfect way. I do wonderful service for wonderful pay. That's it. And like I said, I came up with a song. So I would, like, when I was driving to work this morning, I had a song on, but I was saying that out loud to the beat of the music. I was like, I do perfect work in a perfect day. I do wonderful service for wonderful pay. And I just kept going. Before 8 a.m., I had someone tell me that they have money coming to me. I didn't have to do any work. I didn't have to do anything extra. It's money that's mine. It's money that's owed to me, but it's a good amount. And I just got word, hey, that's coming to you now. I do perfect work in a perfect way. I do wonderful service for wonderful pay. Take that and run with it. Take that and run with it. Another thing I had read in that book was about casting off your burdens to the Christ within, which sounds really, really religious. This has given me, again, in the past 16 hours, not even 24 hours, past 10 hours, I don't even know. This has made me feel so much better, because when you are moving through contrast, when you are moving through difficult situations with people, cast the burden off to the Christ within, which I take as to be my higher self, my source self, God, whatever you want to call it. So let's say I'm having an issue with someone that isn't really like that big of a deal, but it's like maybe someone's showing up in a way that's pestering, or maybe someone is just being angry towards you, or maybe someone just doesn't like you, but you don't know why, and they're just kind of constantly directing like energy at you, if you know what I mean. And it feels uncomfy. That does happen to me sometimes, and it's happening to me currently. So one of the things that I started to play around with was casting the burden off to the Christ within. And the affirmation that you use for that is, I cast this burden of whatever it is to the Christ within, to my higher self, to source, and I go on my way lovingly. I cast this burden that is to the Christ within, and I move on lovingly. I go on lovingly. And when I said that, I said it a few times. I kept repeating it. I've repeated it this morning. I repeated it last night. And any time that I feel that energy starting to come up, that I would get very reactive because I feel like I need to fix things and micromanage how people are seeing me, I remind myself, no, I casted that off. My higher self's got that. I don't need to worry. I don't need to worry because I delegated that. I've talked about delegating it to your higher self before, but this landed in a different way and it felt right. And it calmed me down. As soon as I started feeling worked up, I was like, no, baby, you casted it off. You don't have to worry. You don't have to worry. Why worry? Your higher self's taking care of it. You don't have to do a freaking thing. Your higher self's doing it. Source is doing it. God's doing it. The Christ within is doing it. So I needed to share that because that peace that I found, that shift that I found has made me feel so much better. Again, not even a day. So take those two things and run with them. Take those two things and alter them to work for you. Take those two things and play around with them. So all of this episode was to say that you might fall asleep and wake back up again. You might be outside of conscious creation and then go back into it. You might feel like manifesting and then feel like not, and then go back to feeling like doing it. And that's the beauty of being a human. We wake up and fall asleep to our own power, to our own consciousness, to our own divineness all the time. So don't beat yourself up if you fall asleep. Don't beat yourself up if you're taken over by circumstances for a little while. You don't have to stay there. You can give yourself permission to switch out of that at any time, and you can start taking the baby steps to get back into what works for you. And as you're working on your conscious creation muscle, so even if you do fall asleep, waking back up is going to be a lot easier. Waking back up is going to be a lot more seamless. You're going to know what's going to get you in the mode. For me, it's reading self-help books. It's reading books that Neville Goddard writes. It's reading Florence Scoval Shinn. It's reading Neil Donald Walsh, Conversations with God. Those wake me back up to my own divine entity, to my own consciousness, to my own I am. And I'm just happy that I have those tools. I hope that you guys have those tools too. And if not, I hope this inspired you to find something that will help wake you back up in case you fall asleep. Or maybe it's this podcast, or maybe it's someone else's podcast, or maybe it's music, or maybe it's cooking, or maybe it's playing a sport. I don't care what it is. Find it, love it, be grateful for it, and lean on it when you need to. Because leaning on that is leaning on yourself. When you learn how to lean on yourself, navigating reality gets a whole lot easier. That's what I have for you guys. I hope this made sense. I hope it gave you some clarity. I hope it made your day. Yeah. Check out the website. Email is abbacahdabrapod@gmail.com if you need that for whatever reason. And until next time, this is Abby, signing off.